Perfect. Okay.
First front row can.
Yeah. I used to do that to my students, right? If they tuned out and got on their machines, right? You know, can you panic them? Well, you heard briefly about my book last time we met. It's set in Britain. The title is Legacy, and the theme is that not every legacy works out for the best. Sometimes fate intervenes, and it's about a young woman who we see in a prologue as a young girl. She's about 5 years old, and she's enjoying the time with her grandmother, and a few years later her grandmother dies and leaves her a behest to go to a what we would call a private school, except that it's in England, so a public school. And something happens to her while she's there that transforms her life in a fairly fundamental way. And she leaves the school when she's 17 and goes to London to establish a new life. And that's where the story picks up. She comes to the attention of the police because there's been a traffic incident involving a bus, hence the cover, and she's been killed, to give a bit of the plot away. But she has no identification on her when the police look into that, and they're obviously concerned to notify her parents. So they set out to find out who she is, and they find out she had not one identity, but two identities, and that's what drives the story. I'm not going to read the prologue, which is about her, because that's going to take a bit long, but I will give you a bit of a taste of both the humor and to some extent the poignancy in this story. The individual who's looking into this is a Metropolitan Police inspector by the name of Colin McDermott, and he has a team that he relies on. And McDermott is at a social event at this particular point in the book. He's got his own backstory. The story is set today. In 2005, he was widowed when his wife was killed in the bus bombings in London in 2005. So he's raised a daughter on his own. She's just headed off to university recently. And with a little prodding from his daughter, he's trying to rebuild his personal life.
Story, please. Come on.
Yeah. So this finds him at a social event. Unfortunately, he's double booked the event. He's told one woman he's invited to this event, and only to discover that another woman thought that they had arranged for her to go at the time. So he's with the second woman. The second woman happens to be a pathologist. Her name is Daphne Fielding. The first woman is a barrister by the name of Victoria Chambers. The evening was going splendidly, McDermott thought. Daphne was ravishing. There was simply no other word for it. In a flowing emerald green frock that matched her eyes, and the concert had led off with one of his favorite pieces, Mendelssohn's Third Symphony. From its measured opening to the dramatic finale, Mendelssohn's elegiac piece never failed to remind him of the mystic mood of Scotland. It was the interval now, and McDermott was just collecting a gin and tonic for Daphne and a neat whiskey for himself when he heard a familiar voice. "Colin, fancy seeing you here." He put on his most bland face, the one he usually reserved for suspects caught in a lie, and turned toward the voice. "Hello, Victoria, so you came after all. Are you enjoying the concert?" "Nevermore," she replied in tones that would have sent chills up the spine of an axe murderer. She transferred her gaze to the woman at his elbow. "And this must be your daughter." Her expression indicated that she very much doubted it. "Actually, this is Daphne Fielding, Dr. Fielding," he explained, "one of my colleagues. Daphne, Victoria Chambers." But Victoria was not about to surrender her advantage. How nice for you both. I must have got it wrong, Colin. I understood you were spending the evening with Megan before she returned to university. McDermott realized he would have to take the offensive. He looked past Victoria in hopes of finding the owner of the male voice who'd answered her telephone that morning. Instead, he saw Victoria's parrots glowering at him from the background. She decided to see an old school chum at the last minute, he improvised. You know how kids are. Actually, I don't. I'm told I never was one myself. We must be getting back to our seats. Good evening, Colin. Nice to have met you, Dr. Fielding. As she turned and strode away, McDermott heard her father say, definitely not the woman he was with last night, either. That was the daughter. An old friend, well, that was certainly interesting, Daphne said, smirking. An old friend, actually, known each other since, well, for a long time. And you're still friends. What was that about seeing your daughter this evening? Don't start, Daphne. Obviously, I wanted to be with you. I'm here, aren't I? She grinned. That's all right, Colin. Actually, I enjoyed myself. It's not often that I get to see a grown man behave like a little boy caught with his hand in a biscuit tin. She took his arm as the lights dimmed to signal the end of the intermission, and they retook their seats. And